welcome to another episode of Photography Behind the Scenes. In this one, I'm taking you with me in a snowy and very cold night to shoot some FujiPro400H. I've tried this film stock in various lighting conditions, but not yet at night, so here we go. The first composition I wanted to get is one that might be familiar to you if you've watched some of the recent fog photography videos. I believe it was back in November when I came here in a foggy night to get this shot. The subject I'm shooting here is the same, but conditions are vastly different. It's in the night again, but there's no fog. Instead, we've got snow. I set up a composition, metered the light, and ended up getting a 12-second exposure. Whew. I'm not sure, isn't that like really long? Here's the shot, and I'm quite surprised at how much detail I was able to capture. I thought this was going to come out overall very dark with a strong focus on the middle, which the result could still be described as, but there is a lot of detail in the shadows that I didn't expect to get. Most of the scene surrounding the highlighted area in the middle is fully visible, and I'll take this surprise as a good one. I think the tonal values look really good here, with a nice scope from dark to bright to really bright. And despite the lack of fog in this one, I still enjoy the fall off of the lights, especially on the building at the back. One disturbance I sadly encountered is this strange texture on the left side of the photo, which looks like a stain on the film from the development process. But nevertheless, I think I can say that we're off to a good start. Then I moved closer to the building on the search for a second composition. I wanted to get one that has more focus on the building itself rather than the entire area. I walked around a bit trying to find the optimal horizontal axis towards the building and ended up pretty exactly where I started, so I guess often enough simplicity wins. 1, 2, 3, 10. I hope that's enough light. Apparently, it was. I think this one also came out beautifully exposed. This time, the shadows do fall off into more darkness, which I actually think looks better than in the first one. I also prefer the composition of this version. There's simply a clearer focus on the subject, which isn't necessarily something that always makes a photo better, but in this case, I think this angle is just better suited. Something I enjoy a lot about the composition in this one is the leading of the eye thanks to the road and the subtle framing that is added by the trees both on the left and the far right. All in all, I have to say that I'm really satisfied with how this one turned out, and so this session is starting off great. Then, with those two shots burnt on my roll of film, I decided to move on and walked along the path here that led me around the corner. I was keeping an eye out for some interesting lighting situations and found something that had some potential as I looked to my right here. Basically, this is looking back at the path I came from, and what caught me initially were the long shadows of the trees that got backlit by the street lamp. I took some time to find a suitable composition, which was a little hard. I didn't feel so confident with anything I tried, but ended up just going with something that I thought would be alright. So I guess that was more like 13 or 14 maybe? Here's the result, and I think it's okay. I do still enjoy the initial reason for this photo, the shadows of the tree, but overall I don't find the scene so intriguing. The light is centered around a pretty small area in the photo, which in this particular case just leaves a big chunk of the snow in the middle just empty and, in my opinion, uninteresting. I think that is something that feels a bit off for me here. A detail I like, on the other hand, is the glowing window of the house at the back. It just adds something interesting to the background. I also like how the blue signpost on the path is positioned in the composition, almost as if it were the subject. It isn't, however, because it feels a bit too insignificant for me, so maybe overall this photo would work better if I were a little closer or if I cropped the photo. Then I walked for a while without finding anything worth a shot until I came to a field that was completely covered in snow with a path leading across it lit by some street lamps. I decided to shoot the subject, so I set up a composition. I went for the simplest of simple here and just shot this straight down the path. I often find myself thinking that simple isn't good enough, but when it comes to situations like here, I think any other composition would feel a bit forcefully different, which I personally dislike, so I just went for this. Haven't wired the film on yet. Okay. And here we go. This is the outcome. I think it's another okay photo. I'm glad about how well it is exposed again, but the content itself is not as interesting as I anticipated when I got the shot. The upper half is quite boring, I guess. It's the kind of negative space that doesn't work well, unfortunately. I do enjoy how the lamps lead me through the photo by lighting up the path and how the background is decorated with all sorts of different lights. I can't exactly tell what this photo is missing, maybe I just need a different frame again. I continued my walk, and at the end of the path, I entered a short section through the forest, which led to another path. I stopped in the forest section here before the junction to get a shot of the scene in front of me. One, 2, 10, 11, 12. Whew. Here's the shot. Again, it's only okay. I still like the idea I was trying here, but the outcome is just not quite it. The idea was to capture this brighter area ahead, which felt a lot like a destination of some sort. A bit like as if you'd photograph the scenery that lies at the end of a tunnel. However, that effect doesn't come across so well in this case. I think what's not working here are the branches of the trees and bushes. The branches feel very messy and just add a bunch of patches to the white snow, which overall gives the photo an unclear look. Maybe this shot would work better in summer when the bushes and trees are full of leaves, which are wider shapes and take up more space than the branches, which just render as lines in the photo. Also, I wonder how the photo would be if instead of the tree in the middle, there'd be a person standing, or maybe both, a person leaning on the tree. I think that would add a lot of direction and clarity to the photo. Then I continued my walk and came to a bridge from where I really enjoyed the view over the river that led through the area with some houses alongside it. I set the camera up on the bridge and got a shot. One, 2. Here's the result, and this one is nice, I think. So the river is a wonderful subject of the photo in my opinion. It does a great job of leading the eye through the scene and adding this flow into the photograph. No pun intended. What makes this work even better are the lamps that are posted along the river and enhance the direction it is providing. I think something else that makes this photo work is the snow because it's a strong contrast to the river. I imagine without the snow, the riverbank would not stand out as much and therefore the river wouldn't either. I also enjoy the houses at the back, which act as nice secondary subjects I find. So overall, I think I like this one. Then I crossed the bridge and decided to walk along the river here. Eventually, I found something interesting. Quite interesting. So what I'm liking here is that lamp with the two lights from the windows, with the two windows from the house. One, 2, 10, 11, 12. Just giving it some extra time. I really hope my light meter's metering the light correctly here, because 12 seconds seemed a bit long actually to me, but well, if the light meter says so, I'll do it and hope for the best. This is the shot, and yes, luckily my light meter was correct. The exposure is looking great. So the main reason to get this photograph was the house and its two glowing windows, and I think that turned out wonderfully. I love how orange the windows are and the way they seem quite mysterious. I think this is a cool subject to have in combination with the overall scene. The river and the lamps are already interesting in their own way, I find, but I couldn't find a way for them to work on their own. So then, as this house came along, I took the chance. I think the combination works nicely. I walked further along the river until I found the next interesting spot. This time I came to another bridge that also had a bright lamp next to it. We've got this nice mixture of light colours. We've got the orange light and the neutral light there. We've got the bridge, the bench, and now the tree hanging over. I think this might be quite a cool composition, even though it's got a lot of things to look at. But maybe that is just what makes it cool. Here's the photo, and I think this one also turned out nicely. As I was anticipating, the mixed light colours create an interesting colour contrast here. However, I find now that the orange light is not getting enough space in the composition. The colder light is much more present, whereas the orange colour feels a bit suppressed and pushed to the side. This is due to the composition, but I'm sure I had my reasons to shift the angle so far to the left. I suppose a different issue came up when I moved the angle, however, I can't remember what it was. Anyway, the composition is alright, however, I still feel a strong tendency to the left side, a slight overweight maybe. And my idea of that tree on the right leaning into the composition to add a frame sadly didn't work out very well. Instead, it feels more like a disturbance, I think, as if it were crossing through the composition. Then I walked past the bridge to this park and playground where I found these two ping pong tables. I liked the lighting on them and how they gradually got darker, so I tried to set up a shot. This is it, and I like it. However, there is a lot to improve, I think. So the main goal of capturing the light that is hitting these tables worked out perfectly. However, there are two main issues I have otherwise. Firstly, the background is quite distracting. I actually enjoy it and how the colours shift to this tungsten light colour, but maybe it's just a bit too bright so that it doesn't feel so much like a background and instead distracts a little from the actual subject. And secondly, I think this photo would work better if I would have gone closer and concentrated on only one table. The shot feels very wide, as if the intention was to show the whole playground, but as explained, my goal was actually to present the table. After that, I crossed the bridge and made my way back to where I came from along the other side of the river. I was looking out for anything else I could shoot with the river bank, similar to the house with the orange windows. However, I didn't find anything, and at one point I then decided it's really cold, I've got some shots that might be decent, why not call it an end and head home? And so that was the end. This session had a great start and a couple good photos later along the way. Overall, it was a good one, I'd say. I enjoyed the unique and unusual conditions, which enabled me to get some of the shots that I got. My favourite of the night, I think, is this one. I just love how the lighting turned out here, and the composition simply works so well in my opinion. As always, let me know your thoughts, I'm curious to know what you think. Anyway, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, I'd appreciate a like, and I'll see you again next week in the next video. Until then, goodbye.